So at first he wanted to just turn in and come straight up to me. And now he's kind of ignoring me a little bit. And I'm gonna first start by sending him in closer to the trailer and then up. Mikana, on, Mikana, on, Mikana, off, Mikana, off. Good boy. Mikana, on. And I'm using a cluck to add some pressure and tell him that higher pressure is coming. Mikana, on. See my fingers wiggling? On. Good boy. Now he didn't get on, but he moved more in line with the trailer to get on. Mikana, on. On. Mikana, on. Right there. Good boy. Back up, release my pressure. Good boy. Now I'm going to see if I can approach him, rub on him, and then walk away. Let's see if he'll let me do that. If he gets a little nervous, I'll stop. I'm okay with this right here. I want to approach him and rub on him. Okay, let's try it from here. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Okay, send him. Whoa. Send him. Whoa. Mikana, on. Good boy. He's not lined up right now, but that's okay. He's got 2 front feet on the what's that called? On the ramp. So he's not lined up right now, but he has two front feet on the ramp. So I'm going to let him relax right there. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, good boy. Good boy. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. There he goes. Give him a huge release. Good boy. He's checking it out. If he decides to leave, no worries. Let's see if I can get him turned back in. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Keep adding pressure right there. Release. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Just keep pressuring right there. If he starts to look into the trailer at all, I'm going to release my pressure. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Get a little closer. Mikana, on. This pressure has to mean something to him right there. So if I have to step in close enough to tap him on the butt, I'm going to. If he's not listening. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. And release. Remember, it's the direction that I'm looking for. he backed up out of the trailer and he was doing the wrong thing. But as soon as he started to go forward and he started going in the correct direction, that's when I released my pressure. Release your pressure when they start going the right direction, not the fact that they're in the right location. Location doesn't really matter right now at the beginning, it's direction. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. And release. Good boy. Good boy. His new favorite place is going to be that trailer. Let's see if I can get him in a little further. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Pressure. Mikana, on and release. Good boy. Good boy. I might approach him and rub on him a little bit while he's in there. Oh, see, he feels pressure from me. Let's give him a cue. Mikana, on. Good boy. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Good boy. So I lightly tapped him on the butt. What I don't want to do is keep swinging that stick and string and not adding pressure. If I'm going to just keep swinging the stick and string and he decides to ignore me, I'm doing what we call desensitizing. I would be teaching him to ignore my stick and string. But this stick and string right now is a cue for him to get on. It's that added pressure for him to get on. And if he's not going to move and respond to that, then he's going to feel a tap on the butt eventually. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Good boy. Let's ask him again. Mikana, on. Good boy. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. A good boy. Mikana, on. Good boy. And I'm going to keep trying to approach and rub on him while he's up here. Mikana, on. Good boy. You can see as I start to approach him, he starts to feel that pressure of a human around him, and he wants to exit the trailer. Now here, if he's gonna, he almost went away. Mikana, on. I was gonna send him around, but he decided to come back to the trailer. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Good boy. Mikana, on. Tap him on the butt just a little bit. Straighten him out. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Oh, he's a good boy. Now we're starting to get somewhere. I'm going to step out with him. Give my cue. Mikana, on. Now he exited, so I'm going to give him pressure. You can see how much that affects him. Whoa. When a human's around him up at that trailer. He doesn't like that. Whoa. Whoa. Thought about it. Good. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Good boy. Mikana, on. See if he'll go a little further. Mikana, on. Pressure. Mikana, on. Sees my fingers up here. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Watch for a change right there. Good boy. Now he's at a spot, maybe I can walk up and rub on him a little bit. Maybe not. Mikana, on. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Good job, buddy. Mikana, on. Send him around. Whoa. Whoa. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. On. Mikana, on. Good boy. Send him. All I'm doing is making it easy for him to be in the trailer and hard for him to be out. If he chooses to leave the trailer, put a little pressure on him. Whoa. Whoa. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Good boy. I'm just looking for him to change directions. Mikana, on. Start to approach that trailer. Mikana, on. Pressure, on. Release. Mikana, on. Good boy. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. On. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Good boy. Let's ask him for some more. Mikana, on. Good boy. Release. Now he has a hay bag up in there. I'm going to let him just really check it out because that's about the furthest he's gone so far. And so instead of approaching him and petting on him, I'm just going to let him rest in there. And because when I approach him, that extra pressure makes him want to come out. So I'm going to give him a big release of pressure right here. Good boy. Just rub on him a little bit. Pressure. Whoa. 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 Mikana, on. Whoa. Mikana, on. Now I'm going to start raising my hand as he approaches that trailer and wiggling my fingers. Whoa. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. It's giving a little resistance. That usually gets worse before it gets better. Yep. And a lot of times he'll have a glitch where he'll start getting better and then it'll get worse. Mikana, on. On. Mikana, 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 on. Pressure and release. Pressure. Raise my hand up. On. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Pressure. Release. Mikana, on. 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 Pressure. Whoa. Pressure. Whoa. Mikana, on. Mikana. Pressure. That's okay. On. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Ooh. Pressure. That's okay. If he's relatively close to the trailer, I'm not too worried about his turning away from me. Mikana, on. Oh, Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Okay, I'm gonna change up my strategy just a little bit. And I'm gonna cut him off. Mikana, on. 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 Cut him off. On. On. Give him a little break there. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Right there. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Good boy. Mikana, on. Good. Good boy. Give him a big release of pressure. Every once in a while you have to change your strategy, and at first I was just letting him round pin all the way around, and at one point I just decided I'm going to start cutting him off early on so he doesn't keep running around the round pin. I thought he was just going to get exhausted. He was starting to really drip sweat. So I just increased my pressure here closer to the trailer to get him to be incentivized to get on the trailer. Another thing I wanted to mention is I have a stick and string here. This is a 4-foot stick and a 6-foot string, close to 6 feet long. So I have about 10 feet of reach from my hand to the end of this string. This is going to help me be a lot safer. I don't know if you noticed earlier, but Mikana was standing over here, and he kind of switched his tail and picked his leg up. He was thinking about kicking at me. When you're loading a trailer and you have a stick and string, or if you're loading a trailer and trying to load them with pressure from behind, you want to be really careful, because a lot of horses, if they feel pressure and they feel you spank their butt, they'll double barrel kick back. And so if you're right behind them and you start putting pressure on them, they're going to kick you right in the face or the chest or elsewhere. So you want to be able to be far enough away from them where they can't double barrel kick you or kick you with cow kick you or anything. This stick and string gives me 10 feet of reach so I can stay safe. Now let's see if I can approach him. Now if he starts to get nervous and want to back out, I'm going to stop moving my feet. It's the same way I approach horses when I'm catching them. I'll let him know that I recognize he's getting bothered by me approaching him, and I'll stop and just give him a second. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Now I'm going to retreat away. Pressure. Whoa. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana. Good boy. Ask him again. Mikana, on. Good boy. See if he'll go on a little further. Mikana, on. Good boy. Now I'm going to approach him, rub on him, and I'm going to take that bucket out of there. He's a good boy. He's starting to like this trailer, huh? Starting to be your little special spot. Mikana, on. Good boy. Mikana, on. Cut him off. Mikana, on. Cut him off. Mikana, on. Good boy. So his biggest weak spot right now is when I approach him. He's starting to be okay with me approaching him, but when I retreat, I don't want him to come out with me. That was pretty good there. He gets bothered by me coming up towards him, so he wants to back out as I'm approaching him. He also wants to back out. Mikana. Oh. Send him around one more time, and I'm going to start cutting him off. Oh. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Good boy. Mikana, on. Let's see if I can get him to take one more step. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Good boy. He didn't get that step I was looking for, but I'm going to release right there. Approach him. And retreat. I want him to just stay in there no matter what happens with me, no matter what I do. Unless I'm asking him to get on or get off. If I'm just using relaxed body language, approaching him, rubbing on him, I want him to stay in there. I can walk around the round pen. I should be able to go and have lunch, do whatever I want, and he should stay in there. Now, is he going to be that good today? No. But after 4 or 5 days of doing this, yeah, I could put him in there and I could go have lunch. He would stay in there all day if I worked with him for about 4 or 5 days in a row. Mikana, on. This is very similar to ground tying a horse. If I get a horse to ground tie out in the middle of the round pen or the arena, that means my horse is connected to me mentally even when I'm not connected physically. So if he's standing out there and I leave him and he just stands and stays there nice and relaxed with a hind leg cocked, head down, taking a nice breath, falling asleep, if he's giving all those relaxation signs and not thinking about where his buddies are or thinking about when he's going to go get his breakfast or whatever it is that horses think about, that means he's thinking about me. Because they have to think about something. So he's thinking about me. He's thinking, oh, he wants me to stand here. And that's what I love about ground tying, is teaching a horse to be connected to me even when they're not physically connected. So when I get him in this trailer and get him to start to really relax in there, when I ask him to go in and he goes in and he stays there nice and relaxed, he's connected to me mentally. That's why I can go and have lunch and come back and then ask him to get out. He's not going to get out unless I ask him to. That's how connected he is to me, and that's how we want all of them to be. If a horse is that connected to you, then that's real leadership, and they really follow. They see you as their leader. They're very confident in you. Okay, here. On. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. A little more pressure. Mikana, on. Good boy. Let's ask him some more. Mikana, on. Good boy. Just approach. A lot of approach and retreat. Oh, he's a good boy. Mikana, on. What's that?
When you approach, it's kind of quit him before he quits you.
Yeah, when I'm approaching him, I'm watching to see if he gets bothered by my approach. And if I'm approaching and he starts to get bothered, I'm going to stop. And I'm going to quit him before he quits me. Yep, that concept applies right now as well. And if then it's the approach and retreat method, so I'm approaching him, then I'm going away. Then I'm approaching him, then I'm going away. So he's feeling more pressure from me being up here. And then he's feeling less pressure by me going away. Mikana, on. Oh, cut him off. Mikana, on. 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 All the way. On. Good boy. I always try to find where a horse's weaknesses are. So if I walk up towards him and he starts to feel pressure and he wants to back out of the trailer, I'm going to keep working on that until he gets nice and comfortable with that. That's one of the problems with Mikana, is with a human being with him inside this trailer, he starts to panic. We showed at the beginning of this session how he walked around and he walked halfway into this trailer when we hadn't even been in the round pen. So it's obvious to me that he's more bothered by human being around him in the trailer than he is just being around by himself. So I have to help him through that issue. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Good boy. Now that gate started moving and he started to feel a little panicked. I'm going to walk up here, approach his front end. Mikana, on. Good boy. Just keep approaching and retreating. I want him to feel comfortable with me up here. Now, I don't feel like I'm in danger here because if he were to panic, he could just back out of here. Where I would be in danger is if he were tied in here and I was trying to approach him like this. Because if a horse is tied, there's no way for them to get loose, and once they hit the end of that lead rope, then that's when your wrecks happen. That's when the majority of them happen inside the trailer, is if they're tied in here and they panic. Good boy. Mikana, on. Good boy. Now in a minute, I'm going to back him off purposefully, send him around the round pen, and then tell him to get on. Good boy. He needs a lot of this with a human being inside here with him and learning not to panic. There's no reason to panic in here with me in here. Okay, now I'm going to put my hand on his chest and just ask him to back up. Now, I didn't know he would back up, but I was pretty sure he was going to, because it doesn't take much to get him to back out of here. On. For the most part, he'll just back out on his own because he feels slightly nervous. Back. Let's do this. Let's start saying Mikana off for his cue to get off the trailer. Mikana off. Mikana off. Mikana off. Good boy. Now if he'll stop, just going to give him a quick break. Mikana on. Mikana on. Nope. Mikana on. Good boy. Now I'm going to retreat, walk away. Mikana on. Good boy. Mikana on. On. Good boy. Now you can see how he's starting to respond to me better. Even when he stepped out of the trailer onto the ramp and turned sideways, I was able to still give him the cue, and he went back in. But I'm mixing up my cues right now because I don't want him to start to anticipate that when I get up here close to his head, that he should back out. Walk up to his head and then walk back out. Good boy. Good boy. Mikana off. Mikana off. Mikana off. Good boy. See if he'll stop right there. Mikana on. Mikana on. Good boy. Good boy. Mikana off. What I like what he's doing right here is even when I ask him to back off, he's not leaving. Now maybe he'll leave right here. Mikana on. Mikana on. On. Good boy. Good boy. Mikana off. Mikana off. Mikana off. Mikana off. Off. Good boy. Now I'm going to see if I can get him to follow me around the round pen. Then I'm going to send him in. And I'm going to first start by sending him in closer to the trailer, and then I'm going to get further and further away and send him from further distance from the trailer. But I want to start here close. So he's following me. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. On. Good boy. Boy. He's starting to get a lot more comfortable with me approaching him at the trailer. Mikana, off. 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 Now he's moving his hips to his left, so I'm going to take him this way. What a change in his attitude, right? But he's pretty sweaty. I mean, and people will say, well, it's just because he's tired. That's part of it. He is tired, but if he didn't want to be relaxed, if he hadn't learned to start to relax and get in that trailer, he would still be doing whatever he wanted. He wouldn't be listening to me. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. 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 All the way on. Mikana, on. Good boy. Good boy. Now I might retreat. Remember, I don't want him just backing up because I walked out of the trailer. I only want him backing up because I asked him to back out of the trailer. So if I approach his front and then don't give him a cue to back up, he shouldn't back out of there. Now, Mikana, off. Mikana, off. 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 Mikana, off. Good boy. Now let's send him from 3/4 the way down the round pin. From here, Mikana, on. Mikana, on. 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 Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. Pressure. Mikana, on. Pressure. Mikana, on. Good boy. Good boy. I almost feel like he shifted over so I could come in and pet him. I don't know if that's, it seemed like it, huh? He's like, oh, I'll scooch over and let you come in. What's that? Yeah. Mikana, off. Mikana, off. Now he backed up a little straighter that time, but then he almost walked away from me. Even though I didn't ask him to get back on, I'm going to just let him get on there. You know, eventually as I refine his training, I only want him to get on when I give him the cue to get on. And I would actually start to, after he learned for 3 or 4 days, I'd start to pressure him if he started to get on and I wasn't giving him the cue to get on. But right now, today, we're just teaching him to get on and be relaxed. So the fact that he wanted to get back on here, even when I didn't give him the cue, that's a good problem to have. Follow me this way. Now I'm going to get on the very far side of the round pen and let's see if we can send him in. Mikana, on. Mikana, on. on. Mikana, on. On. I'm gonna let him take his time. On. Pressure. On. 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 Little further on. Good boy. Pretty good. Pretty good. So I think that's a good place to stop him right now. Obviously, we can improve that training. We can get into a bigger area where I can take him in a large arena and I can be messing with him, and then I can just give him the cue. He'll run down to the end of the arena and jump in the trailer. That's ultimately how comfortable I want him to be inside the trailer. And I want him, there's two things going on right here. One is he's learning to be comfortable inside the trailer. And two, he's learning to listen to my cues and follow my leadership. So when you have those two components, and really they go one in the same. If your horse learns to respond to your leadership, then he's going to start to do things that otherwise previously were scaring him. But he starts to do them because he's starting to trust your leadership. And that's what we want with our horses. We want to develop that relationship that's safe, fun-filled. I mean, this is fun. This is really fun stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed today's session with House Calls with Luke. Are you the next house call? We'll talk to you soon.